Janet Yellen urges crypto clarity. Don't you just love to see it? God bless her. We're so lucky to have Janet no telling Yellen there before Congress fighting the good fight on behalf of the American people. Obviously being sarcastic, and when we get into talking about these legal issues, there's a few things I like to do. One, I do like to suit up. We want to look professional when we go confront the enemy in their legal battlefield, so we got to suit up. And then we also got to grab the red folder, because remember where this whole journey started. Our government and the bureaucracy beast in the form of the SEC came after us first. So we got to bring the red folder, got to collect our documents. And along with that, I've now added the green folder, and this is for ETHgate. So this is the XRP case. This is for ETHgate, and the folders just keep on growing. The documents just keep on getting printed. The other thing that we need is our trusty highlighter so that we can highlight these documents when we break it down for you. So in today's update, we're going to talk about Janet Yellen urging crypto clarity in front of Congress. We're going to talk about the new rule that the SEC just made, and they are definitely coming after the DeFi AMM space. And then we're going to talk about the SEC versus Ripple update. Let's get right on into it. Now, speaking of ETHgate, I am going to show a clip here, a little response from Steven Narioff, and in a separate video, we're actually going to go through in detail the bombshell that he just dropped exposing Joseph Lubin. So that's coming in a separate video. But today we did get the update from the SEC delaying Invesco and Galaxy Spot Ethereum ETF. Steven Narioff, the Ethereum whistleblower, responds, saying discard any hope for an ETH ETF. After a decade, the cycle of cover-ups and payoffs hits its ceiling. Key figures in the SEC and political officials who previously sustained Ethereum are moving on. As fresh faces come into play, the scope for their deception narrows. Looks like a little, running out of runway there for Ethereum, the foundation, and everything that they got going on. We'll see. I do believe that they're going to pass, because I do believe that they still have a corruption grip, stranglehold on that three-letter agency. And so I do believe that they will pass Ethereum, even though the chairman himself or anybody else from the SEC won't come before us and just ask, answer the simple question, is Ethereum a security? None of them will come in and give a yes or no answer, period. So how do you pass a spot Ethereum ETF when you can't even define what the underlying asset is? Now, they've really been backed into a corner on that one. I do like to see that. And we are going to finally start to see some regulations getting passed, hopefully this year. And even if it does get drawn out, coming in next year, I know that most people want the moon to be tomorrow. And I trust me, I do too. But this thing takes time. And as you can see, the powers that be are corrupt as heck. And as they're going down, as decentralized finance and some of these other things pop up, AMMs, you're seeing their response is to just attack. Delay, and attack like hell. And so now we see in front of Congress, Janet No-Tell and Yellen urging Congress to pass legislation to provide clarity in crypto markets during the Financial Committee hearing today. Congress should pass legislation to provide the regulation of stablecoins and of the spot market for crypto assets that are not securities. I'm not even going to play the 50 seconds. I'm sure you'll be able to watch that yourself if you're really interested in listening to her. I don't want to put you guys to sleep this morning, so I'm just going to keep it rolling. Now, so on the same day that we have Janet Yellen in front of Congress, asking for clarity, the SEC not waiting in the slightest. They pushed through a new rule here today on basically securities dealers. So Eleanor Terra keeping us up to date as always. The SEC has adopted new rules for dealers and government securities dealers. The vote breakdown was 3-2 with Hester Pierce and Mark Uyeda dissenting and Gary Gensler being the deciding vote. Good guy Gary Gensler here to protect you. Now you can go read the full release. I went to it, and the full PDF document from them on the rulemaking deal is like 200 pages long. And so I'm going to save a couple trees and not print that one out. I did read through like the first 20 pages, and it's very boring, not fun reading. But nonetheless, we're going to get the summary breakdown for you guys. I'll be dropping that as we have a little bit more time to dissect this. But we did see Hester Pierce in her dissenting statement for the dealers saying this, quote, "The rule covers providers of liquidity in crypto asset securities." And that's that new term that they love, right? Crypto asset securities. Not only do the tired questions about when a crypto asset is a security remain, but the rule raises new questions about how the rule will apply in the context of automated market makers. Really? For example, given that an AMM is a software protocol, who will have to register? In light of the difficulties that other would-be crypto registrants have encountered with the SEC and FINRA, will those persons even be able to register? Rather than engage seriously with these questions, the Commission hints that, quote, certain persons engaging in crypto asset securities transactions may be operating as dealers already. Full dissent statement is linked up there. Huge shout out to Eleanor Terrett for keeping us up to date. A little bit deeper into this. So this is an exchange between the staff and Hester Pierce. The staff says AMM is more than software. He explains stuff we all know, and Pierce also knows. He says, yes, indeed, the liquidity providers will be dealers under the rules and will need to register. He says it's the same as every other market maker. Now, Hester Pierce responds, so AMM does not have to register, just the people who deposit. Staff responds, we have to be careful about terms, the people versus means. The people are using the technology to deal. And so he's basically saying, yeah, they know that they can't say that the underlying protocol is the security, right? So now they've redefined what a dealer is. And so now they're saying those that deposit into an AMM, right, are securities dealers, or in this case, crypto asset securities, whatever that means, right? As they see fit. And so Pierce asks, does the person who writes the code need to register? Staff responds, depends on facts and circumstances. If you write software and also you are also using the software to deal crypto securities, then you are in. Pierce responds, how many people do we think are going to be pulled in if they keep doing this today? People who are depositing in AMMs? How many? Staff responds, it's a market that's not transparent. Of course, it's a big, bad, not transparent market, right? Or compliant, so we don't have data. Pierce says they're not compliant because they can't figure out our rules, and this will be a huge implementation challenge for us. So, God bless Hester Pierce for at least putting up a fight on behalf of the American people and the capital markets here in the U.S. We want to see digital assets in the crypto asset space thrive. Not all of them are securities, and in fact, many of them aren't. And even the SEC knows, right? They know that they cannot come in and say that the code, right, the token in and of itself is a security, because they just got shut down in the SEC versus Ripple lawsuit, right? And so now they know the precedent. They know they've been exposed in the courts. So now what do? They go after the dealer definition. And what's so interesting is now they're attacking AMM. We've had years of AMM going on. Remember, Uniswap, which was one of the first AMMs built on top of Ethereum, and that DEX with an AMM built into it, right, has been around since 2018. But just now, right, as the XRP ledger is set to pass an AMM, we're going to rewrite the rules for broker dealers. And we are going to include those that are putting tokens into AMMs. Now, this is getting very interesting, very ridiculous. And yes, you can put the tinfoil hat on if you want to join me in my speculation, because I just find it all too much of a coincidence that all of a sudden the XRP ledger is set to get an AMM, and now they push through this vote, right? I mean, this thing barely pushed through with Gary Gensler being the dissenting or the deciding vote. And as Hester Pierce is clearly laying it out with the staff, like, guys, this is ridiculous, right? That's what she's saying without saying it. Unbelievable. And Peter Schiff comments, and I thought this was spot on as well. How can the SEC, a government agency on its own, change the definition of a security dealer so that it can regulate something that is not actually a security dealer without any law having been passed to authorize such regulation? We are a nation of laws, not bureaucrats. And that's why I've coined the term Bureaucracy Beast. SEC part of it, Department of Justice, some of the surveillance agencies, NSA, FBI, and the boundaries that's been pushed here by the Bureaucracy Beast, they have no shame, even when they get caught, even when they get exposed. They just claim that it's for protecting investors or it's national security. We've completely eroded the Constitution. We've completely eroded the process of passing laws. And now we've allowed officials that are not elected to make decisions, right? And this is the problem that we face right here with the Bureaucracy Beast. Now, to add to our tinfoil hat conspiracy crazy stuff, it just so happens that literally just yesterday, Ripple drops this. Well, actually, they did drop it. Let me take a look at it. They dropped this a few days ago on February 2nd. On February 2nd, Ripple drops this. New frameworks for regulating DeFi. So I'm sure it's just coincidence, right? I've seen this time and time again where some big deal is going to be made, right? Whether it's an exchange going bust. I remember right after FTX went bust, Ripple came in and dropped some deal about exchanges and, compliance for the space. And it's like every time this happens, Ripple steps into the spotlight and says, hey, look over here. We're doing things the right way. We have nothing to hide. We're trying to be as transparent as possible with you guys, but you're still suing us, forcing us to spend $200 million to fight our case that we have been winning, right? And I would make the case, and we'll see how far Ripple wants to go with it. I believe that they could appeal that Judge Torres ruling that the investment, the institutional investor sales were securities. We'll see if they do that. But nonetheless, right? I mean, XRP in of itself not being a security, programmatic sales not a security, sales and other distributions to non-institutions not a security, right? So the victory now for the SEC protecting institutional investors that we should mention are basically all up in profit on those sales, right? So there was no damages done, but once again, the SEC has no shame and they continue to push for as much as they can get. And that brings us to the judge, Netburn, granting the SEC's wishes to get these three things that I'm about to break down here in 1 second. Now, it's very clear. The second point, right? The first thing is financial statements, 22 and 23. Second point is all of the contracts for the sales to ODL institutions after the lawsuit, post-complaint sales, all those contracts reviewed. We have to be clear, though. The only thing that comes into the jurisdiction of the SEC would be sales to U.S. investors or, in this case, institutions, right? And we know this, and we got this from Jeremy Hogan. He cites this case right here, Morrison versus the National Australia Bank. And he says, this will be interesting as nothing less is at stake than the sovereign rights of foreign countries. The U.S. Supreme Court, so this is a Supreme Court ruling, says that Ripple sales must have been in the U.S. or at least on a U.S. exchange. How is the SEC's expert going to get around that? So if it was a foreign institutional investor that did buy OTC on an exchange, then maybe, right? And if an exchange facilitated that. There's really no reason for an exchange to facilitate that. And this is where I think that Ripple has nothing to hide in these post-complaint contracts. The fact that they were sued for $1.3 billion and continued selling billions of XRP tells me that they made sure that all the T's were crossed and the I's were dotted, that the ongoing ODL sales to institutions were not going to be investment contracts. I believe that they stripped out any stipulations, any lockup periods, any sort of expectations, any sort of common plan was stripped of those contracts. Basically, it was straightforward. You give us $1 million, we're going to give you however much XRP. And I believe that we'll be able to piece that together when we get these documents released. They will be redacted. You're not going to be, a lot of the names, the numbers, that's all going to be blacked out. But I think that we'll be, we're so good at riddles in the XRP community. We'll be able to piece all the riddle together and we'll be able to put this case together. I wanted to break this down, though, on why the judge ruled in favor of the SEC. First off, we can call it, technically speaking, is it a win for the SEC? Sure. We can call it that. But let's be real here. This is not that big of a deal, in my opinion. Let's break it down on the reasoning why the judge is going to hand these documents over. I believe Ripple has nothing to hide. And just today, they did actually request a 1-week extension. I'm sure that the judge will give it to them, which would push the date for the end of discovery that's ongoing right now from February 12th to February 20th. That's about 8 days, I believe. So another week out. What's one more week when we've already been in this thing for 3 years, right? And so they're probably just making sure all these documents are presentable. Now, in the first case, the 2022 and 2023 financial statements, the court says, and it cites this case right here, SEC versus, I'm not even going to try to pronounce this name, Rajaratnam, probably butchered it. But this case here from 2019, quote, Courts have no hesitation in concluding that in calculating the size of a penalty necessary to deter misconduct, the extent of a defendant's wealth is a relevant consideration. Continuing on, at this stage, the court sees no basis to short-circuit that inquiry by denying access to readily available information that may be probative to the remedy stage. So it should be readily available. This shouldn't be a big deal, and it is going to be important when the SEC is making their case, I guess, in closing, and when the judge is determining, what the fine should be. Let's move on over to post-complaint contracts. Point 2. Ripple appears to argue that an injunction should not be entered because its post-complaint conduct has been structured in such a way to comply with the court's rulings. As I've been saying, the Ripple argues, right, in the reasoning for why the court shouldn't have been able to, grant the SEC their wishes in this regard, is that all of these post-complaint sales have been not breaking the law. And so the SEC should be permitted to rebut the statement. The court is not convinced that the production of these contracts will result in an improper or costly mini trial. You heard that in Ripple's defense. They specifically said the mini trial, right? You're adding to the ongoing lawsuit some separate, facts, some separate details, some separate actions that weren't part of the original claim. But the court is not convinced that the production of these contracts will result in an improper or costly mini trial. Hand them over. The third point, post-complaint XRP institutional sales proceeds. And they cite a case right here. See Vackold LLC versus Cerami, 2008. The purchase of a security occurs when the parties to the transaction are committed to one another. So this is where the judge decided to rule, and the SEC, has made this claim that the post-complaint XRP institutional sale proceeds we need to take a look at them. And the court says, because the SEC has made a sufficient showing that this information may assist the court in fashioning its remedy, i.e. the fine, Ripple must respond to the interrogatory. So for those reasons, the Ripple must hand over all of these, right? The financial statements, the post-complaint ODL sales to institutions, and then the post-complaint XRP institutional sale proceeds. How much money did you make? And so the SEC is going to get to take a look at the inner workings of Ripple. And after these documents, assuming that they don't get completely sealed up, Ripple could request for all of it to be sealed up. I don't know if they will. Don't know if the court would grant that. They do have a right to privacy, so that would be understandable. I could already see the talking points that the haters and the fudsters would run with, right? Ripple wants to cover this up, right? So they're requesting to have it all sealed, or they're requesting to have parts of it blacked out. Even if Ripple just wants the names of their clients to be blacked out, the haters will, put the spin on it, but the XRP FUD spin factor, and to say that Ripple wants to hide it all. I don't think that Ripple has anything to hide, honestly. I really don't, other than, just it's standard to want to protect your business practices, your business model, and, how much money you're making, right? They don't owe that. They're not a public company. And so it's totally reasonable that they would request to have a lot of this sealed up or black, redacted. So nonetheless, this is the fight that we're in. Where's it at? Pull it out. People just don't understand this. And once again, the same folks that want to put a spin factor on this are the same ones that want to spread XRP FUD nonstop. I literally saw XRP FUD, XRP FUDsters literally cheerleading the SEC's rulemaking today. That's how stupid this has gotten. They don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about laws. They don't care about the precedent in the United States. They want XRP to lose that bad. That they just are, literally getting off on the SEC breaking the law if it means that XRP and Ripple might lose. That's how bad they want us to lose. Now, for whatever reason, they're making rules for AMMs right as the XRP Ledger AMM is set to go live. For whatever reason. I'm sure it's just a coincidence. You guys let me know in the comments down below. Try to break down this legal proceedings and make it simple for everyone to understand. And this is why we got to continue to fight the good fight. Remember, they came after us first. It was up to us to put up a defense, to sign on with John Deaton, to send letters to our congressmen, women, senators, to stand up, to retweet, to share. And just like I said in the video yesterday, if you guys are pissed off about this and you want to expose this, you can go to that that XRP Unleashed documentary, it should be on Fruition Productions, the company that's behind it. And they did ask me to interview for it, and I did participate. And I'm very interested to see how it goes. Not so much for me to get any screen time. That'll be cool, I guess. But what I'm really looking forward to is John Deaton exposing this thing and blowing it wide open. There's some other folks that I think are going to be coming through on that as well that'll make it very interesting. Not only sharing the truth about XRP, but also just explaining the battle that we've been up against. It's not so much about ETHgate. It's about fighting against the Bureaucracy Beast, and the SEC was the main enemy in this case right here that we're up against. So we got to call it out. We got to continue to apply pressure, and you guys can help me out by sharing this content far and wide. I'll see you in the next one. God bless. Thank you. I am your host, Zach Rector. I really appreciate all of the love and support. If you want to support the channel, just remember that you can start by smashing that thumbs up for me, sharing this content far and wide, and everything else is at my website.